The Yata Mirror is one of those weird abilities that's not very often used in the Naruto story, but it gets extremely hyped both in and out of universe. Well, it is an Itachi ability after all, so it's gonna get very hyped by default, because Itachi is one of the most liked characters in the fandom, and with all this hype comes many exaggerations about the capabilities of the jutsu, which is the topic of today's video. And also don't forget to leave your like and subscribe if you haven't, because this video is gonna be pretty cool. Now, many people say that the strength of the Yata Mirror is essentially infinite, that nothing can brute force destroy the mirror, and that's pretty much it. If you hit the mirror, you're not gonna do anything to Itachi inside of his Susanoo. And sure, you can find some arguments to sustain that line of thought. The first interesting argument that you can use is that Black Zetsu, this guy who's seen the entire shinobi history and it's secretly trying to resurrect the goddess of shinobi, even though that part of the story is not canon, saw Itachi using the Yata Mirror in conjunction with the Totsuka Blade and said, yeah, this guy is invincible because the Yata Mirror can literally block anything and the Totsuka Blade can seal anything, so how are you gonna deal with this guy? He is invincible. And if you go fight by fight in the Naruto series, at least the ones we see in the manga, Itachi hasn't really lost any of them. Even as an Edo Tensei in the war arc, he doesn't really lose. Now you can argue that Jiraiya made Itachi run away in Naruto Part 1, but that's because Itachi didn't want to fight Jiraiya. After all, he was an ally of the Leaf Village, and even though Jiraiya didn't know that Itachi was on his side, Itachi wouldn't want to kill Jiraiya, so he's like, yeah, Kisame, let's go away. That's fine. Let's leave. That doesn't really count as a defeat in my book because Itachi actually won in that exchange. He got what he wanted, he went to the Leaf Village, he scared Danzo and the Elders away so that they wouldn't get close to Sasuke, and he didn't capture the Nine Tails, which was something he didn't want to do because, well, the Akatsuki's plans cannot advance. But if you're interested in finding out what would have happened if Itachi and Jiraiya fought for real, you can watch the video that I've made on Itachi vs Jiraiya a few months ago. Another fight that Itachi actually loses is the fight against Naruto, Kakashi, Chio, and Sakura, but that Itachi wasn't actually himself. It was a body double created by Nagato, and he only had 30% of the power. He could not even use his Mangekyo Sharingan ability, so if the Yata Mirror and the Totsuka Blade are the things making Itachi invincible, he couldn't use them at that time, therefore he technically wasn't invincible according to Black Zetsu there. And then there's the Itachi versus Sasuke fight, the climactic fight between the brothers, which, yeah, Itachi dies in the end of the fight, but that was all according to plan. He meant to do everything he did in that fight. He made Sasuke think he was actually winning. He took Orochimaru out of Sasuke's body and sealed him away so that Orochimaru wouldn't interfere with Sasuke anymore, after making Sasuke very tired so that he couldn't suppress Orochimaru's chakra anymore. And he died just like he was intending to. But even Obito later on confirms to Sasuke that, yeah, if Itachi wanted to kill you, he would have been dead, man. So I guess you can say that wasn't a proper defeat. Then again, this state of invincibility only lasts until Itachi can maintain his Susanoo with the Totsuka Blade and the Yata Mirror activated, so it's not something he's gonna be invincible forever, right? After all, Itachi's not the guy with the most chakra in the verse. Now, there's a lot of people that say, yeah, Itachi has no chakra at all, but that's not true. He has a decent amount of chakra. Definitely way more than your average shinobi, because if you rewatch the Sasuke versus Itachi fight, they do a lot of stuff in that fight, especially Itachi, kind of spamming his Mangekyo Sharingan abilities, and he lasts for a while, and he was very sick. And we also get statements like that kind of often in the Naruto manga. Oh, this character is invincible. Oh, you cannot beat this character because he's just that strong. You cannot counter this ability because, well, it's impossible to counter. And those characters are beaten, and those abilities are countered because this is how manga, especially shonen manga, works. Hyperbolic statements to hype characters up, and then, oh, when you actually beat the invincible character, your main character is just that more awesome. But after this argument, people are gonna point out to the databooks and say that, yeah, the databooks literally tell you that nothing can bypass the Yata Mirror. Now, according to the databooks, the way the Yata Mirror works is by adapting its nature to the attack, so that the shield can just tank everything that's thrown against it, which is certainly a very effective way to block attacks of all varieties. But the thing is, if we only look at, for example, the elemental jutsus in Naruto, using the same property to block something that's made out of that property is not the most effective way you could go about it. For example, blocking a fire-style jutsu would be much more effective if you do it with a water-style jutsu than with another fire-style jutsu, simply because water has an inherent advantage against fire. Then again, we don't get the specifics of how the Yata Mirror works, so perhaps this is the way it does. It uses the most effective possible property to counter the attack. So yeah, if it's a fire style attack, the shield's gonna become a water property shield. If it's a lightning style attack, it'll become a wind style shield, and so on and so forth. And then the databook states that because the shield has this property, it renders attacks meaningless. But that's also very hyperbolic. I mean, really, anything that's thrown against it can adapt, and even if it's an extremely powerful jutsu, it's just going to, like, puff out. There's another databook statement that says, well, the Yata Mirror can block literally any physical attack, ninjutsu attack, and it can even block astral projections, so something like Dan's ghost projection wouldn't work against Itachi if he had a Yata Mirror up, which is certainly pretty cool. It doesn't say anything about genjutsu though, so it's pretty obvious that, yeah, the Yata Mirror cannot block genjutsu, though it wouldn't be very necessary because who's even gonna try to use genjutsu against Itachi? Kurenai did that, and she's been the butt of the joke for 20 years now, so Itachi doesn't really need protection against genjutsu. And yeah, according to the databook, there's really no way to break the Yata Mirror and bypass it. Because yeah, databooks never lie, they always tell the truth, and they never have any hyperbolic statements whatsoever, am I right? Who would win? Itachi's unbeatable Yata Mirror or Temari's destruction of the universe? Because according to the databooks, Temari can blow away the entire universe with a single strike and nobody can stand against her. It's a little hyperbolic, don't you think? Now the problem we have gauging the strength of the Yata Mirror precisely is that the Yata Mirror wasn't used very often in the series. And when it was used, it wasn't exactly against extremely powerful things that's, oh, okay, this is very impressive, you managed to tank that. There are three things that the Yata Mirror blocks. The most impressive thing is Orochimaru's 8-headed serpent strikes, which, sure, that version of Orochimaru is pretty powerful, and Itachi felt that he needed to raise the Yata Mirror to block those investments from Orochimaru there, but let's be real, this is not that big of a deal if you compare to the top tiers in the verse in terms of raw power. I'd say the Totsuka Blade had much more time to shine. After all, it managed to seal Orochimaru and the 8-headed serpent, and also Nagato in the work. And then the two other things that the Yata Mirror blocks, well, they're not impressive at all. First, it's a kunai with several paper bombs attached to it that Sasuke tossed against Itachi, and Itachi raised the Yata Mirror and it doesn't do anything against it. Like, sure, as if paper bombs were ever effective ever in the series. And then Sasuke rushes at the Susanoo with his sword and attacks the Yata Mirror. The Yata Mirror blocks him without much difficulty. After all, it's just a sword attack with no chakra enhancing it, nothing at all. Just basic taijutsu with weapons. A normal metal shield would block that. I mean, Itachi's normal Susanoo would block that without any difficulty at all. So we don't really have a great sample size to say, oh, the Yata Mirror is amazing, isn't it? But it has never failed. Now, the most common argument as to how somebody could defeat the Yata Mirror is that the Yata Mirror is not omnidirectional. Therefore, if you're fast enough to circumvent the Susanoo before Itachi can reposition the mirror and attack from behind, the Susanoo can be destroyed. After all, we've seen several Susanoos being destroyed in the series, or heavily damaged at least. Susanoos that are stronger than Itachi's Susanoo, so it's not impossible to bypass the Yata Mirror by not attacking it and attacking the Susanoo. And yeah, like many Susanoo weapons that we see changing sizes, you can also argue that the Yata Mirror could do the same thing. But the thing is, a shield that wraps itself completely around Itachi's Susanoo, it would look kinda goofy and it wouldn't even make sense. That would no longer be a shield, more like a barrier. And if Itachi could use that, he would just be spamming that in the work when he had limitless chakra as in Edo Tensei. And then he would be invincible because nobody would be able to hit him, right? Because if he did have an omnidirectional Yata Mirror, then yeah, you can't really bypass that the way you usually would. You have to punch through it. But nothing really indicates that the Yata Mirror had such capability. But we can also infer the limits of the Yata Mirror by looking at when Itachi did not use it, because he didn't use the Yata Mirror in the war at all. As I said before, we only see it blocking 3 times, and it wasn't in the war, so obviously he didn't use it there. Now in the fight against Nagato, he used Chibaku Tensei against Itachi, and yeah, there's no way you can can block Chibaku Tensei with the Yata Mirror because it's just pulling on the entire Susanoo, so the mirror is not going to be effective in this situation. It's not the type of jutsu the mirror is even made for. But then in the fight against Kabuto, he uses some very powerful lights and sound jutsus that do affect Itachi and Sasuke, and Itachi doesn't use the mirror to block that. If he was able to do so, he would have done it. After all, the mirror can be activated instantly. Now, we don't know exactly how Itachi countered Kirin, but it's heavily implied that he used the Yata Mirror, and Kirin has a ludicrous speed that you can only dodge by teleporting away in a split second or blocking it in a split second. And we see time and time again in the series that the Susanoo activates instantaneously. So if the Yata Mirror comes with a Susanoo, it's kind of easy to imply that, yeah, the Yata Mirror is just instant. When you want to use it, you can just pull it out of your rear end and it blocks the incoming blow, just like it did to Kirin. But Itachi doesn't use that against Kabuto's White Dragon Jutsu that uses that powerful light and sound to essentially dull your senses. And he saw Kabuto using the attack before it actually exploded, so he could have put the shield up, but he didn't, meaning that the shield can't block light or sound, which is kind of obvious if you think about it, because if it did block light and sound, Itachi wouldn't hear or listen to anything coming from that side of the Susanoo. Like, he would essentially be looking at a black void in front of himself if the shield blocked light, kind of like a black hole. And sure, maybe Itachi could hear sounds coming from other sides, but in Kabuto's jutsu there, if the shield blocked the sound coming from, you know, the front, the sound would still wrap itself around the shield and come into the Susanoo from the side. So yeah, the Susanoo or the Yata Mirror, they cannot block sounds because people can hear what's being said when they are inside the Susanoo. So this is not really, you know, something that's debatable. So there's another way to bypass the Yata Mirror: sound and light attacks. Now, Itachi gets hit several times in his fight against Kabuto, such as when Kabuto uses his inorganic reanimation, or when Kabuto just scalps Itachi in half. But those attacks, well, Itachi didn't block them because he was trying to use Izanami, and it was important for him to get hit by those. So using the Susanoo there wouldn't even make sense, but the Susanoo would block those attacks kind of easily. We even see Itachi using his Susanoo hand to block the inorganic animation from hitting Sasuke. So yeah, obviously the Yata Mirror would tank that. It's just that Itachi didn't use it because he wasn't strategic in that moment. But we still never see an extremely powerful attack in terms of just raw strength and damage potential that's being thrown against the Yata Mirror. Even still, the notion that it cannot be destroyed by anything that's thrown against it is a little bit ridiculous. Now, as the Yata Mirror changes properties to adapt itself to the attack, it does resemble a little bit the Truth-Seeking Orbs because they do have every property already inside of them, so they kind of do the same thing by default. And they're excellent shields. We see Madara and Obito using them a lot, and yet the Truth-Seeking Orbs are broken several times in the series. Naruto and Sasuke managed to crack Obito's Truth-Seeking Orbs with the Susanoo Arrow Bijudama combination. My guy is able to punch through Madara's Truth-Seeking Orbs when he lands a hit. And those things are created with the chakra of the Ten Tails, a mixture of everything essentially. The powers of the Rinnegan, the Sage of Six Paths, the Ten Tails itself, the Divine Tree. It's the ultimate combination of every single nature transformation that really spooked the four first Hokage when they saw it there for the first time, and they were like, okay, this is very dangerous. And yet there were ways to break it. I could even mention when Naruto attacks Madara, but Madara uses his Ranton Koga and cleaves Naruto's Truth-Seeking Orb staff in half like it was a knife through butter. So if you want to say that Itachi's Yata Mirror is more powerful than the Truth-Seeking Orbs created by the chakra of the Ten Tails, I mean, I guess you could say that, but I think this is a little bit ridiculous. I think that if you are powerful enough, you can break the Yata Mirror. If Ten Tails Obito used the Sword of Nunaboku, for example, against Itachi's Yata Mirror, that jutsu probably has a very good chance of just breaking through it. The same thing goes for the Night Guy. After all, it's a piercing attack almost with Guy's foot, and it does a lot of damage. Very concentrated damage. It seems the appropriate thing to try and break something like the Yata Mirror. And we also cannot discount the most powerful jutsu in the verse, arguably at least, but the jutsu that's able to negate abilities that negate other abilities. Kamui. Kakashi was able to Kamui Madara's Truth-Seeking Orbs away kinda casually in the Guy versus Madara fight. It was almost going blind, by the way, and he was able to just Truth-seeking orbs are gone, guy, go and punch Madara there. Like, that's a truth-seeking orb barrier, and Kakashi Kamui it as though it was a mud wall. It seems as though Kamui doesn't even care about what type of material it's Kamui in a way. It's just the amount of said material that's important, because, yeah, Kakashi Kamui's that truth-seeking orb barrier, he also Kamui's other truth-seeking orbs in the series like it's nothing. Kamui's insanely busted, and I have no doubt that if Kakashi looks at Itachi Susanoo and the Yata Mirror, he can use Kamui and dig a hole in it. Another ability that's interesting to think about is Onoki's particle style, because we see time and time again that it's able to destroy Susanoo's left and right. It destroyed all 25 Madara wood clone Susanoo's at the same time with a massive particle style Onoki used. So if Itachi was, thrown against Onoki in this situation, he would just be completely enveloped by the particle style and he would die, because yeah, even if the Yata Mirror tanks it, the rest of the Susanoo wouldn't, and therefore you would be disintegrated. But if the particle style would be to just hit the Yata Mirror, then I think there's a good chance the Yata Mirror could block that by adapting its nature against the nature of particle style, which is a KK Tota using 3 nature transformations. Perhaps it could transform itself in a KK Tota style that has the best chance to block something like particle style, but we simply don't know at this point because it's speculation. There are also several statements in the databooks saying that particle style is an extremely overpowered ability. So if you go only by the databooks, I'm sorry, but you're kind of ignoring everything that the story is telling you. You're essentially throwing common sense out of the window, and yeah, people tend to do that more often for characters they love, like Itachi. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the Yata Mirror is a terrible, weak jutsu, much in the contrary. It's obvious that the Yata Mirror is more powerful than just the Susanoo in terms of defense. After all, if it wasn't, then Itachi wouldn't use it, and we know that the Susanoo is extremely powerful in terms of defensive capabilities, and that the defensive capabilities of the Susanoo evolve as the Susanoo evolves as well. Meaning that it's likely that if Itachi were to awaken a perfect Susanoo, for example, the Yata Mirror would probably get huge, the size of the perfect Susanoo, and also much more powerful and tankier. Now, will this hypothetical version of the Yata Mirror be invincible? No, because the things that bypass the Yata Mirror that I mentioned here would still work, like in Jutsu, Light, Sound, Kamui, but it would certainly be able to tank way more than just the regular Yata Mirror. Then again, even in this state, if you throw enough power against it, it will shatter. Nothing is completely unbreakable in the Naruto universe. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, like the video to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. It takes 2 seconds, and when you do so, there's a cool fireworks animation. Watch this other cool Itachi video right here for more Naruto content, and thank you so much for watching, guys.